Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Glow podcast. I am here today with Yashica, and I just want to go ahead and give you the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Okay, well, I am Yashica Davis. I reside in Atlanta, Georgia. I have been here over 20 years. I am the director of Rejuvenate Restore Med Spa, in addition to holding another role with our sister company as the director of legal. So my plate is always busy. I am also a professional model. I'm the spokesmodel for the med spa. So I am always busy, but I'm excited to take this break and talk to you a little bit. It's a little different from my day-to-day busy.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm sure you are very busy and have a lot on your plate, and that'll be fun to talk about what some of your day-to-day kind of looks like. So kind of back to the medical spa a little bit. Obviously, you're the director of it, so you're kind of overseeing everything that goes on in the medical spa.
Mhm.
What are some key factors that somebody who's maybe interested in opening a med spa should consider before doing so?
Well, this is a new space for me. So, I am, definitely a person who was coming into it blind
Yeah.
outside of, just frequenting med spas. But I will say, some key factors is, people focus on the presentation of a med spa and not necessarily what goes on behind the scenes. So some key factors is number one, I would say making sure that you are compliant, with everything that you need, licensing, permits, certifications that you need to be able to have certain machines in your med spa. And also just going into it having a clear brand identity. I think that it's important when starting a med spa that you go into it knowing who you are, knowing what your brand is and what it represents and who your target market is going to be. I think that's very important in factoring in, when you're entering into a new business, especially something that is very, very, very competitive.
Yeah. No, medical spas definitely are super competitive right now. And I think you brought up
Yes.
such a good point. I feel like your target audience, also who you're serving, is going to kind of help you with creating that brand identity
Yes.
as well. And like the most basic thing of that I like to compare it to is like if you are marketing to children, obviously you're going to market very different than if you are marketing something that's like a luxury service like a medical
Absolutely.
spa to adults.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love that you brought that into it. And this kind of leads into like a little bit of my next question. Obviously, like you just said, the medical spa industry is very, very competitive right now. So how have you all done a great job of differentiating yourselves in this competitive market?
I think what, going into it, we had a few I would say strikes against us. Number one, we're not a storefront. So that is the one thing we had to take into consideration. How are people going to find us? Why would people even want to come to a med spa that's not a storefront? So then that goes into, who we are, who is our brand, what's our identity. And I think that we have done a good job of creating a boutique environment that also blends clinical excellence with luxury but personalization. So, we are a boutique med spa. We people come in, they're greeted depending on your service. You're getting offered champagne, you're getting offered, robes and headbands. And we try to create a family oriented vibe. And I say that because, a lot of these services, people come to med spas to look better and to feel better,
Yeah.
right? So, there are some individuals who want a more personal experience. Not everybody wants, people to see what they're getting done or to know that. So we pride ourselves on creating this boutique luxury premier experience, where you can come in and feel like this is your spa. We
Yeah.
personalize everything, we cater everything to our clients, and we just give you that feel of feeling comfortable. We want you to come in, we want you to be comfortable, we want you to feel like you are in a different world for that hour
Yeah.
or 2 hours that you're here. So I think that's something that we kind of honed honed in on early on. And I think we've done a good job of, creating that type of space here. So I'm really excited about that. And, some of the services we offer, going into it, how can we separate ourselves? That's one of your questions. We wanted to make sure that in addition to offering, services that are, very trendy, we wanted to separate ourselves. So, we, in addition to offering laser body treatments, we actually, I believe, are the only med spa in the state that we offer real liposuction. We offer
Okay.
real plastic surgery here in the med spa. We have an amazing surgeon, Dr. Dee Dee Allen, who comes in and she does lipo in real time. And it's a phenomenal service. It's one of our biggest sellers here because you're coming into a med spa and you're getting lipo.
Yeah.
And it's in a very luxury environment. So that comfort level, the fact that you can come here and get a facial and then tomorrow I can get lipo. So I think that was something that was really important. What is that key service that we can offer that is going to really separate us? And so far, that has been one of our huge sellers. It's been, we're booked and busy.
Yeah.
With that particular service. And I think the caveat to that, I get questions, how are you guys able to do that? Well, you are not under local anesthesia. You are awake. It is awake lipo, but you go through the same healing process. You go through the same, post-procedure process, but, everything is done in-house. And I think people love that because they're not fully put to sleep, which makes it a little safer. You're able to talk to your surgeon as she is working on you. And I have noticed just in years, people having a lot of problems with plastic surgery and going under local anesthesia and being put to sleep. And this is something a little bit different. You're able to get that service, without being put to sleep. So it's just a really fun experience. I have gotten it myself, and it's a really, really amazing experience.
And I think, like you said, it's awesome that like one day it's like, okay, I'm going to the med spa to get a facial or, get Botox. And then the next day, like you can do different like plastic surgery things because you all work with a surgeon. And I feel like that's even just very, very differentiating because a lot of med spas are not working with surgeons. So that's really, really cool that you guys are doing that. What would you say as director of a med spa, what's some of the biggest challenges you guys have faced as well?
Well, I think initially going into it, my CEO and founder, there were 4 predecessors that tried to get the med spa open and running. And there were just a lot of bumps in the road. And it just came to a situation where he said, look, this is your life. You go to these med spas, you are the person. And I think that's because he knew I possessed, a few other skill sets that could potentially, assist me in being successful in getting it open. But I will say, some challenges you run into are, compliance, as I spoke about. You want to make sure that from a legal standpoint that you are doing everything, compliant and, that aligns with, all the recommendations and, permits and licensing. You want to make sure you're going into your business being compliant because that can definitely bite you on the back end. You want to make sure you have the proper insurances in place. Some people don't know what type of policies or what type of coverages they should, have on those policies. So that was a bit of an issue going into it. And also staffing, when you have created your identity and your vision, you want to make sure that you're bringing individuals in the door who are not only experienced but align with that vision. So that was a little bit of, an issue in the beginning, and you may find individuals who are experienced but maybe their personality isn't a good fit. So, just staffing, compliance, that was a bit of an issue. And also, what should I carry? What products shouldn't I carry? What works for all skin types? What doesn't work for all skin types? We're inclusive. We wanted to create something that was inclusive to everyone, men and women and all skin types. So those are some barriers we had to cross as well, finding the right products, finding the right equipment that worked for everyone. So, whomever is walking in the door is not limited to what service they can get here. So we are definitely very inclusive. But, going into it as a new business, those are kinks that you have to just work out. And sometimes it's just trial and error. You go into it, you don't really know. You're trying this, that doesn't work. You have to keep trying and trying until you get it right.
I love what you said there too about being very inclusive to all skin types, men and women as well. That's super important, especially you don't want to just serve one audience, but you want to be able to serve anyone that's kind of walking in the door. And I'm so curious, just because I love hearing this, what is your favorite skincare line right now that you're currently using or have customers using?
Some of my vendors may get upset, but my favorite skincare line, and I've actually used this skincare line prior to Rejuvenate Restore, so I knew prior to opening, this is one of the skincare lines that I really, really stood by and wanted to carry in the spa is Skin Better.
Okay.
It's and also Hydrinity. Hydrinity and Skin Better do an amazing job of creating medical grade products that work for all skin types. They are very effective. They, deem results. And those are products that, we stand by. So, these are products that we provide to our clients, and we provide other products as well. But our top products, I would say, are Skin Better and Hydrinity.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. No, that's great. I'll have to check those two out.
Very, very good product.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to look at them for sure. I've heard of Hydrinity before. I don't know if I've heard of Skin Better, but I need to check them out for sure.
Yeah, Skin Better has been around for years. Like I said, they're always coming. And what I love about these particular brands are they're always coming up with the newest, latest technology.
Yeah.
For skin. Every few months they're coming out with a new product. They're bringing those products in for us to try. And I really love companies that are innovative and also companies that don't, get stagnant. They are constantly reinventing. And, I love that about those two particular companies.
Yeah. That kind of brings me to my next question then. What innovations right now are you kind of most excited about within either skincare or really the whole aesthetic industry as well?
I'm just loving the fact that people can go into a med spa and get less invasive treatments that allow you to restore and rejuvenate your skin and your beauty. We are no longer in the day of having to go to a surgeon and get these invasive plastic surgery procedures, these facelifts, these chin lifts, these neck lifts. Although those things are great and they're still available, but everyone's price point is different, right? So I love how the industry is continuing to reinvent ways that individuals can get that same effect on their skin, but not necessarily breaking bank.
Yeah.
So that is, the new wave of skincare. I think that people want to be able to, especially women, when you're getting a little older, you want to focus on anti-aging. But we have so many services and so many products out there that can give you that look of having invasive procedures without having them and saving more money. So I love that about, the evolution of this industry.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like you're right. It's so much more readily available now, and you don't have to do anything that's nearly as invasive, like you said, to get really the same results.
And
So are
also,
there?
a lot of our clientele, they're busy, they're movers and shakers. They don't have a lot of time to sit and recover, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to sit for weeks and recover from an invasive treatment that they've received? I love the fact that you can come, you can get a service, and 48 hours is your downtime.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I
so
love
we're just
that too.
moving in a different space. I love that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then also too, another big thing is like the scarring. People don't want scars. They're getting these services to look and
Yeah.
feel better, and scarring a lot of times can have the opposite effect. And I know
And
that
then
there
you're
are
getting those scars, and then you're going to a med spa to use, one of their machines to get the scars removed. So
exactly.
why not
Yes.
offer those services or something similar that can give you the same effect all in house?
I know, like I said, like you just said, there are services where you can get the scars removed, but it's like if you don't even need to get the scars in the first place,
Exactly.
then it just like takes out the middleman kind of.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, so transitioning kind of to a different note, obviously, I'm sure as you know, social media is huge now and it's kind of changing the landscape for medical spas and really everyone kind of in the skincare industry, skincare and aesthetic. What are you seeing right now on social media that you're like, wow, this is amazing, or this isn't amazing? Because the great thing about social media is anyone can say whatever they want, but that's also kind of the downfall too. So what are you kind of seeing on social media right now in the industry that is shocking or amazing?
Well, one thing I think that I see, because this industry, like most, are so competitive, what I look for in social media is something that's really going to catch my eye. I don't really care to see the same blanket, videos posted about the services. What I'm seeing that has been really effective is people being real and people being transparent. That's another thing that we pride ourselves on. We're very authentic here, and as stated, I'm not just the director. I stand by these products, I stand by these services. I've received probably 90% of everything that we offer here. So I
Yeah.
love to see authenticity. I love to see people having fun, because this is not a job. When you
Yeah.
come here, this is a fun place. This is exciting. So
Yeah.
I love to see, videos and photos that play on the kind of fun, comical side of it while providing educational services. I think it's important to educate your audience, but I also think it's important to be relatable.
Yeah.
And that's what I look for when I'm looking at social media, because social media, unfortunately, can get a little convoluted with what's real and what's fantasy. So I respect and I look for those videos that are really authentic and showing something that's relatable and real, as
Yeah.
opposed to what they think people want to see.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it can get kind of boring sometimes too. If you're seeing the same before and after, or like you said, if you're seeing the same services. But the things that really get people's attention is the stuff that is relatable or entertaining. And I think you brought up a good point too about kind of the transparency aspect of it. It's like that's becoming increasingly popular. And of course,
Yeah.
some people still don't want others to know, what they're doing. But I think the transparency aspect of it too is becoming a lot more popular with social media. People are becoming a lot more willing to talk about what they have had done or what they have done. I think that that's great.
Yeah.
Do you all use any sort of kind of like, obviously right now influencers are a huge thing, and I think you spoke a little bit to this at the beginning. Do you all use any type of influencer marketing or any sort of like partnerships with any influencers local to kind of the Atlanta area?
Interesting question. So I will go back to the question of what is the biggest kind of issue that we've run into. So I
Yeah.
wanted to, I did a little research on an influencer, what that meant, what that looked like. And, we tried it, initially, but I did find when you're moving into the influencer space as it pertains to med spas, you have to be very, very strategic, because you have those individuals who are keen on this social media world, right? So they want the best of the best. But when it comes to generating revenue and business for your company, you have to be very mindful of who that person is and what that person represents. Is that person just a person who wants to come in and get free services, post one or two videos, and not really promote your business?
Yeah.
Or is that individual someone who is very passionate about their skincare and their self-care and what, represents? So they're going to promote your business properly. So we did try the influencer thing. It did not work great for me.
Yeah.
in the direction that, we wanted to move the med spa in. We do work with a few individuals, but our focus is definitely our social media presence and marketing. So that is our primary focus in terms of generating business and word of mouth.
Yeah, no, that makes sense for sure. And when you're reaching out to these people too, it's like you want to make sure, like you kind of said, that they are aligned with the brand and they're genuinely like want to also be involved, because like
Because,
a lot of. Go ahead.
I don't necessarily look for the person who has a million followers. Do I want to work with that individual just because they have a million followers? Or am I doing a little research? Am I looking at their page? Am I looking at, do they ever post anything about their skin regimen? Do they ever post anything about their self-care? Or are most of their pictures, filtered pictures of being out? So you just have to be, from a business standpoint, you have to be very strategic in how you move in that space, because, none of these services are, I'll just say it, they're not cheap services.
Yeah.
So from a company standpoint, we spend a lot of money to be able to provide these services to individuals. So if we're working with an individual who we're giving, major discounts or even free services, we want to make sure that it's, a partnership, and that it
Yeah.
works for everyone. And I would encourage any business owner in the industry, be intentional in any individual that you work with, because at the end of the day, that's a representation of your brand, and you just want to make sure that it's beneficial for all parties involved.
Yeah, no, I think you said it amazing. Like, you want to be intentional with everything that you're doing with your marketing, especially if you're bringing someone else into the mix as well.
Absolutely.
And what are some of the biggest trends in the med spa industry right now that you're kind of seeing? We talked a little bit about innovations, but is there anything right now that you are really, really liking that you're seeing, or anything that you're maybe not liking too?
I wouldn't say there are too many things that I don't like, because I think
Yeah,
everything serves a purpose,
for
as
sure.
it pertains to skincare. You just kind of just pick and choose what works for your business and the demographic that you're trying to reach. Right now, we are going to be offering a new service, starting in April. I'm loving, once again, these procedures that you can get done in a med spa setting that are less invasive and have less downtime. So,
Yeah.
one of the new things is the liquid BBL. That's a hot topic. That's a hot trending topic. All these girls, want to know, hey, how can we get these procedures done? And it's going to be safer, and it's going to be less invasive, and it's going to be less downtime. So we are actually going to be rolling out what is called a liquid BBL, and it will give you immediate results. There is very minimal downtime, and you get it done with filler.
That's
So I'm
awesome.
extremely excited about that, coming into the summer. Every girl wants the perfect body, right? They want the perfect
Of
body, and
course.
they don't always want to go lay on the table to get it. Hey, you lay on our table, and 30 minutes later, you're walking out with an enhanced bum. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited about that. That's something that we're going to be rolling out next month. But, as a whole, I love to see these new innovative treatments. Like I said, it just kind of, it's plug and play, right? You can't have
Yeah.
everything. You can't offer everything, but we're looking for the hottest, trendiest, services that we can provide that are going to be beneficial and going to be hot sellers.
I feel like, yeah, definitely the liquid BBL, like you just said. I've seen that on social media and just like heard about it some. And I feel like that is a very, very hot one right now. I feel like it like first started with maybe like Kylie Jenner or something, and
Yes.
then it's just blown up from there, kind
Yes,
of.
and it's become a thing, so we're very excited to be one of the med spas, who will be offering that service. And, once again, when I say compliant, all of our clinicians here, we have RNs here, we have an MD here, All of our estheticians are certified and laser certified. So, we pride ourselves on getting the best of the best to be able to provide these services. So you're not just coming to some chop shop, you're coming to,
Yeah.
a premier luxury situation. It's safe, everything is compliant, everyone is licensed, So, and our medical director, who is our CEO and founder, he is an orthopedic surgeon. So, we are not just offering these services and, we're offering safe, effective services.
I feel like even just hearing that the whole organization is under a surgeon, like that would make me feel very, very safe going somewhere
Yes.
because they are coming from like a hospital situation or any, like a medical practice. And then obviously you all are a medical practice as well, but it's like that would just make you feel very safe as a client coming in, knowing
Absolutely.
that you're under a very, very well trained and very medically trained staff.
And I say that to say, I have seen med spas who, call themselves med spas, but you have to think when you say med spa, there's a medical piece to that, right? So if there's a medical piece to that, that means there's a clinical piece to that, which means that, all the individuals in your facility need to be clinicians, they need to be certified, they need to be licensed. And, I would encourage individuals to shy away from those entities that do not have real clinicians rather than having individuals that were trained on a service to provide. That's very, very important. And that I think that's something else that separates us and all of the med spas who actually have real clinicians, real physicians, in their building. That makes a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I love that you brought up that point because I think that is an amazing point to make. And even doing your research, before you do go to a medical spa and just making sure that they are trained clinicians, like you said.
Yes.
And then how do you see kind of the medical aesthetic industry evolving in the next 5 years with like just different innovations, or where do you kind of see the winds blowing over the next 5 years?
I see this industry becoming a multi-billion-dollar industry. I don't think that this industry is going to slow down anytime soon. There is constantly new innovations, new machines, new products, new services that are being offered. And I really appreciate that fact. And not to say that we're moving out of the plastic surgery world, because there's always going to be, individuals who want to actually get, certain procedures done at the hand of a plastic surgeon. But what I do love is that, once again, I'll say coming to a place where you are not treated as a number, you're not just treated as another client, you're treated as family, and you're able to get these procedures done and walk out feeling restored, and have minimal downtime, that is the new wave, I believe, of this medical spa industry, is offering premier services with minimal downtime, offering the best of the best, skin services, laser services, body services, hair restoration. We're moving in a day where, you see men in a med spa just as much as you see women here. So this is not just a single gender, industry. Men, women, I even see young girls, paying more attention to their skin. And I love that because, when I was growing up, there was no social media. So I did not have to compete with my peers on social media. And I think that we've come into a day where, young women, young men see what they think is reality on these social media platforms. But I also embrace and love to see young people embracing their natural and authentic selves and wanting to focus on their self-care, wanting to focus on their skin. So I see this industry, growing into a multi-billion-dollar industry and being able to create a safe space for, individuals for many, many years to come.
Yeah, no, of course. And I feel like too what you were saying, it made me think of, it's not just about obviously like looking better. It's about how it makes you feel too, and a lot of people, when they look better on the outside, they feel better on the inside too. The two things definitely go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
So I think that's why the industry is just booming so much, is because people are like, I just want to feel better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so this is kind of one of my last questions. What advice you would give to someone looking to start or even just grow their med spa? What has been really like life changing, I guess, for the business?
What has been life changing? I think offering the right services.
Yeah.
Once again, you have to understand, you have to go into your med spa knowing what your identity is and knowing your brand and knowing your target audience that you want to reach. And once you hone in on that, you have to stand behind that and you have to run with that. And I think having a clear identity of who your business is and what you want to represent, once you hone in on that, then you can focus on strategy and how to market and how to grow. So, just authentically, we started from nothing and, we created this, oh, we want to focus on being this premier boutique med spa. We want to offer the best of the best services. We want to be inclusive. We want to be a premier, luxury boutique med spa that separates us. So then you hone in on, okay, how can we do that? What services are we going to provide? Even if we're offering the same services, how can we tweak ours to be a little bit different? What can we do? So I think my advice would be is to have a clear identity of who you are and what you represent and build your brand based on that. Your marketing, everything needs to be surrounded by that identity, that clear identity. And I think that's kind of what was a game changer for us. Once we knew who we were, who we wanted to target, then it was easier for us to focus on our marketing efforts, because at that point, now we know who we need to work with to be able to target that certain market that we're trying to target. And that for us has been essentially a game changer for the med spa.
I think that that's such great advice for anyone who is either in the industry or looking to get in the industry, is really, really know your target audience, because that is going to help you build everything else, like you said, from your services to your branding to your marketing. So yeah, I think that that's just awesome advice, and thank you so much.
And just stand behind your brand, stand behind your brand. Trust me, there's going to be a med spa everywhere you go. So the competition is very, very massive right now. But stick to your identity and your brand and who you are, and that in itself, and your authenticity. As long as you stay authentic and true to who you are and what your business represents, the business will come. Don't try to compare yourself to the med spa down the street who, may have 40 clients coming in and out. You don't know what they're doing or what they're offering. Stick to who you are. Don't try to compare yourself to anyone else, and just stay authentic.
I think that that's such great advice, really. I love the authenticity portion there and just sticking to who you are. And thank you so much, Yashica, for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. And how can people find you and the med spa as well?
Well, you can find us through our website. It's rejuvenateatlanta.com. You can find us on all of our social media handles, which are Rejuvenate Atlanta. And you can reach us by phone at 678-841-7055.
Awesome. And I'll put all of that in the show notes as well, so everyone will have access to that there. And once again, thank you so much. And if there's anything else you want to tell everyone, go ahead.
No, just, we're coming into summer. Make sure you're wearing your SPF, make sure you're wearing your moisturizer, and make sure you are going to the med spa, any med spa, because self-care is important.